Well, happy January the 15th. So today is Thursday. I have not been here, as you know, as many of you will know, who follow this. I have not been here forever. We were gone all the first part of this. Uh-oh. I'm already getting an unstable warning. So, okay, it went off. All right. So, we are, or at least I am finally back. Now, my husband is not at work. He's over there and he's been sick. So please give him a prayer if you can think of to do that for me and for him. And maybe he's going to try to join us later for our Titus 2:4. We're going to be doing that series later today, but I'm hoping he can join me for that one. But we're gonna go ahead and do reason together. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do it, and I've got a reason together today. So there is this idea in America for people who do know who Seventh-day Adventists are. A lot of people just know them because they keep the Sabbath and they know them for maybe other reasons, but they don't know very much about them. But Adventists really are different, very different. They're not particularly evangelicals or fundamentalists. Definitely, they are a hodgepodge of beliefs, and especially in the United States. Now, there are anywhere from 23 to 25 million Adventists. Now, the church just put out something that said there are 25 million people around the world that sit in an Adventist church, in general across the world every week on Saturday. And I'm sure that's a lot of people that just are coming with family members who aren't actual members of the Seventh Adventist Church. But that's a lot. Now, it is mainly outside of the United States. And I would say those that are outside the United States, because there are a lot of them are in South America. There's tons of Adventists in Brazil and stuff like this. And so those Adventists, and I would say more minorities as and Hispanics and blacks and all the minorities tend to be much more orthodox Adventists in their beliefs and doctrines. But the United States is a very different animal. In America, it doesn't matter what race you are or political, whatever it is, they tend to be a hodgepodge and of beliefs, of orthodox beliefs, and but they edge towards liberalism in their politics. And so I want to give you, because I don't think most people realize how odd Adventists can be in the United States. So, who are Adventists? That's what we're going to answer. Who are these Adventists in the United States? And the reason that we're interested in this is because before we became Catholic, my husband and I used to be Seventh-day Adventists. We were raised Seventh-day Adventists, and we left we formally left in 2001, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We put in our papers in 2001, and then our papers were getting out of here. We're leaving, but we didn't become Catholic till 2008. And during that time, Adventism, I thought, had morphed and become more Christian and more like mainstream Christianity in the United States. Not so much. So we want to bring your attention to what we think is generally a good example of Adventists today in the United States. And I chose something that I found out of Aunt Sevy. This Aunt Sevy is an anonymous Seventh-day Adventist advice columnist Abby from the Seventh-day Adventist magazine, Adventist Today. Now, it is an independent magazine, but while it would be more liberal than probably non-United States Adventists, but it's not as liberal as Spectrum magazine, which is also an independent Adventist put out magazine, and they are very liberal. But Advent Today tends towards the mainstream road. They're kind of on the main, what is it? The middle of the road in the United States, Adventists. Okay, so what I would like to do is just take some time and read. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be interesting, but it will be. All right. I'm going to just give you a baseline of Aunt Sevy and what she writes in her column in Adventist Today. And all right, I want to let's see. It's her view on meat. Okay, so this is very mainstream for Adventists. And if you're not an Adventist, this will be a little bit shocking to you. Dear Aunt Sevy, writes someone into the magazine, I may have done a terrible thing. I always make and freeze homemade lasagna hamburger casseroles for my family and a vegetarian one for church potlucks. On a recent Sabbath, I pulled out, now their Sabbath, remember, Seventh-day Adventist Sabbaths are Saturday. So on a recent Sabbath, I pulled out one out of the freezer and took it to church, where I heated it up and set it on the serving table. My husband, sitting next to me at the meal, took a bite and gave me a funny look and said, "Oh, which lasagna did you get from the freezer this morning?" One taste, and I knew it wasn't the one I'd made with textured vegetable protein. That's fake meat. It's Morningstar sausages have a lot of fake meat, and they're made from plants, but they're supposed to mimic meats. That's what she's talking about. Okay, we'll continue her question to Aunt Sevy. Now, for just a moment, Aunt Sevy, I considered standing up and shouting, "Stop eating! I've mistakenly fed you real meat," and sent them all to the bathroom to stick their fingers down their throats. I'm ashamed to say that I didn't have the courage to do that, especially since people all around the table were lifelong vegetarians. They were complimenting me on what a great vegetarian lasagna I'd made. It was the first thing gone from the serving table. One dear old saint, who I know to be a true health reformer, begged me for the recipe. I just smiled and told her I've got a secret ingredient that I'm keeping secret. I've repented. Listen to this. I've repented to the Lord, Aunt Sevy, but need I make a public admission too? I will add that secret ingredient. See, I will add that secret ingredient seems to have been recognized by no one but us. And it's not been mentioned since. And that was written by Terrible Mistake. That's what she named herself. Okay, now this is the part. Okay, that's normal Adventists. Literally, when Adventists, because I've got a lot of family and friends who are Adventists, and when they come to my house, they will ask me, "Are you putting?" Some of them, the super Orthodox Adventists will say, "Are you putting pepper? You know, Adventists don't have pepper." Oh, okay, that's not real coffee, right? That's a fake coffee substitute because I don't believe in coffee. Oh, you're not going to serve anything with caffeine in it. They are so paranoid. Now, this is the older generation. And like my husband's family, and they're a little bit older. So, I mean, those people really sincerely believe that if you have one bite of meat in your mouth, then you will not be able to be translated to heaven in the last days. Now, you can die and then go to heaven, but when the Lord comes, if you've eaten meat, you can't be translated. Okay, so that was the question. And now we're going to get mainstream Adventist reaction by Aunt Sevy. She responds, "Dear, terrible mistake. My goodness, my dear, you have gotten yourself into a pickle." And she says a little bit, but I'm just going to read you the end of it. Aunt Sevy's advice: drop it. Bringing it up now would only upset the saints and serve no real purpose but to clear your guilty conscience. Your punishment is to keep the secret. Be relieved that what they don't know doesn't appear to have hurt them. In fact, they seem to have immensely enjoyed this forbidden fruit. Ground beef is the forbidden fruit she's speaking of. That said, it still wasn't nice. Do not make that mistake again. That's how she ended it. It wasn't nice. She got chastised for that, just so you know. I want you to keep that in mind when we go to the next topic that Aunt Sevy answers. Okay. Now this is, let's see. Oh, hi. Interesting here. I'm sorry. Somebody just posted something. Interesting here in Germany. Adventists are divided. The North is very liberal and the South is very conservative, Orthodox, and even fanatical. We have a kind of Adventist Bible, but in the South. Oh, that's interesting. Now, I know that during that Southern Germany has had lots of very interesting Adventist history, especially during World War II. And there was some support of Hitler from the Adventists. And so the Reformed German Church of Seventh-day Adventists came out of that. But anyway, so yes, I know that they're very split. Okay, let's get back to Aunt Sevy. Because again, we're not just reading this just for interest. We're reading this because this truly gives you the idea of how mainstream Seventh-day Adventists think in the United States. Okay, so now we're going to do Aunt Sevy and the Trinity. I'm having to pull this up, and I don't have my glasses on, so I've got to get it really big. Okay. Dear Aunt Sevy, I'm a bit confused as to the following distinction. Is God three separate beings, God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost, or a single God with three aspects? Can you help me? Now, we're going to read the whole thing in this one because it's worth you noting some of the things here. Gentle reader. Can Auntie help you? Not much. The Trinity has been debated for centuries, and it's unlikely that you and I are going to land on the perfect description. Auntie doesn't oppose the Trinity teaching, but neither does she think that we know enough about God to insist that we must all have the same God algorithm. The fact is, human beings cannot know the precise composition of the infinite, immortal God, and it is arrogant to assume that we do. Don't forget that the Trinity as such doesn't appear in the Bible. The first formulation of the idea were crafted at the Council of Nicaea by Roman Catholic churchmen under orders from the Emperor Constantine, who you'll recall we Adventists disparage for supposedly changing the Sabbath to Sunday. Is the Trinity important? Probably. Please note that. Probably is her answer. But important enough to create church fights over and split congregations? Auntie says no. And some of the Adventist pioneers would have agreed with her. James White, Uriah Smith, J.N. Andrews, all of these people held anti-Trinitarian views. Notice who was in that list. James White. He is the founding father of the Adventist Church. He and Ellen White and one other person started, it might have been Uriah Smith. Anyway, they were the founding ones of the Seventh Adventist Church, and he was anti-Trinitarian. So just keep that in mind. Now continue. What is important to Auntie is to know and trust that the attributes of God, as shown in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, are strong, merciful, involved, kind, just, present, and working on our behalf. Signed, Aunt Sevy. Okay. I hope that you guys really understand what just happened. This author really seemed to represent the middle ground of Adventists. However, I suspect Auntie Sevy is also in her 50s, or at least in her 50s, because her opinions really represent that time frame. The people that grew up, that were born in that time frame, they consider themselves to be very liberal politically, with a mixture of Adventist heresy and orthodoxy when it comes to food and Sabbath. But having said that, please compare with the average Seventh-day Adventist opinions on food compared to other very important foundational issues to its Christianity at large. The Trinity, not such a big deal. Putting meat accidentally in potluck lasagna, wow, you are chastised. Okay. And so our guy from Germany responds, I've heard from Adventists that the question of the Trinity isn't important at all. What matters is worshiping God on the Sabbath, as if God is the Sabbath. And I do believe that it's possible that some Adventists worship Sabbath appear to worship the Sabbath in the same way that many Catholics appear to worship Mary. I mean, there's a similarity there in other accusations. Okay, now we're going to do another quick one from Auntie Sevy. So, and I'm just going to make this quick, and I'm trying to get you to compare her shaming the person that accidentally put ground beef in the lasagna compared to how she is treating these other what mainstream Christianity would consider very important topics. Okay. Dear Aunt Sevy, I'm 23 years old and an Adventist, and I'm finally admitting to myself that I'm a lesbian. She goes on and she talks some more, and she says, what should she do? And I'm not going to read you the whole answer, but what I'm going to say is a couple of points that she makes, and I'm quoting. The Bible does not condemn committed homosexual relationships. ... Every reference to homosexuality in the Bible has to do with pagan worship, not to loving, monogamous, and faithful persons who seek to live out the implications of the gospel as faithful heterosexual couples would. So Aunt Sevy is okay with homosexuality. She just says as long as it's in a monogamous relationship, lesbianism, a marriage of lesbians would be fine. Okay, just again, compare that to what she said about meat. Okay, and now the final one that I'm going to read, and we're going to discuss it a little bit further, is something that is very near and dear to my heart: the topic of abortion. All right. So we have this person who asks, Dear Aunt Sevy, I'm grappling with the Seventh-day Adventist Church's stance on abortion. Adventist.org offers little more than the vague suggestion to use your own conviction to make a decision. While they do not condemn abortion outright, they take no stand in condemning the termination of life. On the flip side, they state clearly that our church is opposed to homosexuality. So I know they can draw a hard line when they want to. No such wording is used in the context of abortion. Following this, I discovered Adventist hospitals do indeed perform abortions. Now, just to stop here for a second, I don't know whether they continue to do abortions or not. Supposedly in 2019, they just were going to try to stop abortions in Adventist hospitals. They've never come out and said that it has stopped. But there was in the GC committee meeting in 2019, there was a statement that they were going to try to have the hospital's regulations on abortion more parallel with the Adventist church teaches about abortion, which would be more pro-life than pro-choice. But again, we just really don't know. Okay, continuing the question. This lukewarm stance on such a grave issue has left me confused and heartbroken. What if a woman is in a tough place? What if a woman in a tough place is led to sin by this permissiveness? The medical staff performing abortions is also being asked to sin. While it is in the spirit of Christ to forgive a woman who has aborted her baby, it's another thing entirely to perform an abortion or support it. How can I reconcile this with our life-affirming God who knit us together in our mother's womb? And it's signed Mother of Many. Okay, so I'm going to read you portions of Aunt Sevy's response. And I guarantee you this is very mainstream Seventh-day Adventist in the United States. Dear Mother, and then she says a couple things. Okay. The biggest problem in the abortion debate is knowing who we should be feeling sympathy for. One side feels empathy for a potential life. The other side feels sympathy for a woman who cannot care for her baby. Okay, ... Imagine, Aunt Sevy writes, for a moment that you're a young woman, perhaps you're married, perhaps single, and you find yourself unexpectedly pregnant. ... The question here, does the punishment fit the crime? Now, what Aunt Sevy is saying is your punishment is a pregnancy and a child. That's what she said. The question here, does the punishment of having to have a baby fit the crime of having sex when you didn't want a baby? Many people, she says, many people believe that if a woman gets pregnant, then she just deserves what she gets. Do you see the negativity in the Seventh-day Adventist view of children? I can attest to you that when I was a young mother, Adventists were saying to me, "Oh no, don't have too many kids. Don't have too many kids. Oh, please don't have too many kids. You've got to be able to feed them. You've got to be able to send them through Adventist schools. The Lord is coming soon. Don't have too many children." They really do not see having children as a blessing from God. My husband's grandparents had made the commitment when they got married in the, 1940s maybe, that they would have no children because the time of the Lord was at hand. And she accidentally got pregnant. And I spoke to her personally, and she said she determined she was not going to have an abortion. See, you could have them back then. I didn't even realize it was, but yes, some doctors would give you an abortion. It wasn't legal, but they would do it anyway. And she told me, no, she was definitely going to have the child, even though they had made that commitment and she was letting her husband down. And so that was my husband's father, my father-in-law, was this child that was born. And he was an only child because that was it. They had already made their biggest mistake. So you can understand, Aunt Sevy right here says something that is abhorrent to most Christians. That they said, Many people believe that if you're a woman who gets pregnant, then she deserves what she gets. What a attitude. The problem with that logic, Aunt Sevy continues, of course, is that the life you're trying to protect, that of the embryo, is the one who is most likely to suffer. And asking a woman to devote a lifetime because of an accidental pregnancy is not a fair return. Not to mention, it is not only the woman who will suffer. Okay, it's only the woman who will suffer. A man who gets a woman pregnant can skip out of her life and will suffer zero consequences for the same crime. How exactly is that fair? Early abortion. Now, this is what is very important to understand about Adventists. We're going to explain why this is what Adventists actually believe. Early abortion is less about taking a life and more about preventing a life, the same way that birth control would prevent a life. Okay, I'm going to finish reading this, and then I'm going to take you into some sources that will prove this is what mainstream, not just mainstream, but Adventist doctrine supports. She finishes up with, and by preventing that life, we prevent an unwanted child, which is a recipe for abuse, neglect, and a lifetime of unhappiness. And as we know statistically, that isn't true at all. That's absolutely untrue. But anyway, I'm going to get back to what she finished. Quote, I feel how your heart loves babies. My heart does too. That is why I support access to abortion, because every child who is born should be wanted. And then she says, try to extend our empathy to each other and those who have to make this terrible choice. Now, if that embryo is not it's only a potential child, why would Aunt Sevy say it's a terrible choice? What's so terrible about a choice between getting rid of cutting your fingernails or having a child? I mean, she's not making any sense. She is saying it's a terrible choice, but then she's arguing that it's a meaningless little child. Okay. So, what I would like to show you real quick is, I don't know if you can see this or not. Okay, because I can't tell if you could, sometimes it flips the image, but this is called Abortion, Ethical Issues and Options, edited by David R. Larson. And it was a symposium about abortion. I think it was in 1989, and I was in it. I have been involved in the abortion issue with Adventists for the 15 years before I left Adventism. I was one of its biggest advocates to get Adventist hospitals to stop doing abortions and to actually have a doctrine that would support Adventist life, an Adventist doctrine that would support life and not abortion, because at the time they were pro-choice. It was a pro-choice church. So I'm going to look into, this is my book, and in it, chapter 11, the hard cases of abortion, I presented this at the symposium. Ooh, let me see. How do I do this? Okay. I presented this at the symposium, and then they included it, what I spoke about in this book. And you can get it on Amazon, and I think Loma Linda puts it up too. So anyway, but you can see, if you read that, you will see that I was the only one in the book that was solidly pro-life. Okay, so now we're going to get into, for a minute, why are Adventists nonchalant about the Trinity? They're nonchalant about homosexuality, and they're nonchalant about abortion. And there is an actual doctrine that until they get rid of this doctrine, which they're not going to, their hospitals will continue to do abortions. Their doctors will continue doing abortion, and there's no reason for them not to. And so this is Seventh-day Adventists Believe, a biblical exposition of the 27 fundamental doctrines. Now, this one was published by the Ministerial Association General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. So it's an official publication of the church out of Silver Springs, Maryland. And it was copyrighted in 1988. And if you will go in this book to page 82, this is about the nature of man and what a soul is. And so I'll just read you a little bit. The biblical meaning of soul, as we have already mentioned in the Old Testament, soul is a translation of the Hebrew word nephesh. In Genesis 2:7, it denotes man as a living being after the breath of life entered into a physical body, formed from the elements of the earth. This is where it's important. Similarly, a new soul comes into existence whenever a child is born, each soul being a new unit of life, uniquely different. So they believe that when the unborn child takes its first breath, that is when the soul fuses with the body. Before that, it's not a living soul. It's just a body. There is no spirit and no soul inside that child. And therefore, that is doctrinally why they can perform abortions up until the first breath. And historically, now I don't know about today, but historically, when I was involved, it says my connection is unstable. So I'll sit and wait for a minute. There it comes. I hope. Okay, so in the 1990s, I'll just repeat it in case I was knocked off. I spoke to some OBGYN doctors and nurses who worked in the delivery room of Seventh-day Adventist hospitals. And they said that the doctor would decide. There was no policy in the hospital for how late an abortion could be. And so it was up to the doctor to decide. And if a doctor wanted to perform the abortion right before birth, there was nothing stopping them in the Adventist hospital. Now, I don't know if that's correct today or not, but when I was involved, I was horrified by that. So anyway, okay, now I want to just show you, that was an older version. This is the new version of it, and it was, this is the third edition of Seventh Adventists Believe, and this one is from 2018. So this is an updated one. And let's just see, of course, you know the answer, but let's just see what they say. Again, this is page 94, and it is the nature of humanity. They took out man, making it more gender inclusive. So, okay, we're going to go down 94 down to where the little thing says 1, the biblical meaning of a soul. It's exactly the same thing as in the original one. Similarly, in the middle, it's in the middle of the paragraph. Similarly, a new soul comes into existence whenever a child is born. Same thing. Exact same thing. I do believe this is the most recent fundamentals of the Seventh-day Adventist. It's the official Seventh-day Adventist doctrines. Okay, so what do we do about that? What do we do about a church that is in its doctrines believes an unborn child does not become a living soul until the first breath? Aunt Sevi explained it very much the way Adventists see it. It's a potential child until the first breath. They're not quite sure about what they think about the Trinity. Everybody's at leisure to think what they want about the Trinity, but when it comes to homosexuality, when it comes to abortion, they're liberal. Now, eating meat. Now that's a true frightening thing. So anyway, but what I do want to say is I want to just end up with saying this. I have been out of the Adventist church since 2008, but I still have family and friends that are in the Seventh Adventist Church right now. And I have a friend who is named Andrew Michelle, and he calls himself Pro-Life Andrew. And he is a super Orthodox Seventh Adventist. And he kind of, when I left, there was it was empty. There were no pro-lifers in Adventism, at least public pro-lifers. So I was thrilled to see later on Andrew Michelle get involved with this issue. And he even has a website, but he keeps up on Adventism and abortion right now. And he will keep us abreast. You can go to his website. It's called The Remnant is Pro-Life, and it's on YouTube. So he's an advocate for the unborn, and he keeps really good statistics, and he puts them online. And so you can really know what Adventists believe if you look at what he teaches and what he told me personally. Now, it was in a comment, so it was written, a text. But he said there are virtually no Seventh-day Adventists under 30 who are pro-life. Now, that really shocked me, because when I was going around as president of Seventh-day Adventists for Life, or Adventists for Life, and I would be going to schools, universities, and churches, and I spoke about what happened during an abortion. And it was the older generation that was super pro-choice. I mean, vehemently pro-choice. And the students, especially university students, young women, would be more, wait a minute. Once maybe this really is a baby in there. Maybe we really shouldn't. And they were becoming more and more pro-life. And so it's very shocking for me to hear him say that. And live in the United States. He lives in the Philippines. So about worldwide Adventism. Shoot, another warning. I don't know. Warning. So I'll give it a second, and then I'll finish up what I was going to say. Okay, so for all of you people out there who do not know what Seventh-day Adventism is about, I gave you a good idea. They're really wonderful, kind, caring people, but they have very unchristian doctrines. They would be more on the liberal side. They don't ordain women. They can have women pastors, but they don't ordain women. So they do have their fundamentalist side to them. But then abortion, well, it's up to the woman. Oh dear. So that is basically all I wanted to do today. And I thank you for listening. And I'm going to get back now into doing some live. Please, like we always have to say, I hate it, but everybody has to say, please put a thumbs up on, hit the little button with a thumbs up and that you like it. And every time you comment, the algorithm on YouTube notices it. And so thank you so much. Please share it if you can. And God bless. Have an absolute wonderful day, because every single thing everything we do shows other people Christ and shows and we get to show God to other people. So let's keep that in mind no matter what we say, no matter what we do. We are his living examples. Love you very much. God bless.